Hey, team, how we going? It is Kaz from In the Trenches with Kaz. Basically, what occurred is I just had to restart Streamlabs. So this should be all good. As you can see, this is a little bit different to what we normally do with Streamlabs desktop. This is StreamYard, sorry. So basically what we're going to do today, this is going to be a bit different. We're going to watch the first opening of Ben Roberts-Smith, the first time he speaks since he'd been incarcerated based on alleged charges. And I want you to think to yourself, do I want to hold the mic tonight? Am I ready to communicate, on behalf of your opinions without the emotion and have a discussion based on a man that has allegations against him of war crimes, but there is no allegations about the facts that this man is a hero. VC, the highest level, highest echelon, Olympic warrior. Also, in case you didn't believe that, Medal of Gallantry, just to top that off. Amazing, fantastic. There's something else I'm going to say to you that you may not like at the moment, and that is you are not his peer. Don't think you're communicating about him as his peer. He's one of us. He is your countryman. He represented you, where his life was on the line at least 6 occasions at the very highest level, where he stood out amongst the highest and the bravest of those that represent you in the darkest hours while you're in bed, and others, where he will risk his life, lose his life, all of his tomorrows, not just for him, but also for his daughters, also for his missus, also for his parents. All of that gone. And he is willing to do that because he has more in common with the Roman Empire than what he has with the modern male and female. Can have tattoos down to their wrist but wear fucking pink Crocs. He is your countryman. He does love you, frustrated by you, probably respects the hell out of the fact that people stood up for him, but he is not your peer. His peers are SAS soldiers, 2 commando soldiers. They are the people that should be involved with a court case, a court-martial behind closed doors. None of this should have ever made it to your TV until he had been found guilty of such crimes in a court of law, not by peers of countrymen, but of peers of those that have carried the weapon. And I don't even like the officers, other than maybe Mark Wales. Love that guy. He started off in 2RAR, 2nd Battalion Royal Australian Regiment. Fantastic guy. Somebody get rid of Happy Hobo. Isn't just soldiers, you moron. Guys, Hobo's not all there, team. It's okay, Hobo. It's all right. I don't trust any of the government. I don't think anyone does these days. I really don't. Here's something down here. We've got a poll there. All charges be dropped against Ben Roberts-Smith, VC, MG, dismissed. Yes, before ANZAC Day, because that is going to be one of the hardest days of his life. It is the day that he is always reminded of his brothers that he could trust, that had his back, that fell with their face to the enemy that have never been publicly chased after by Nick McKenzie from 60 Minutes or the hierarchy, or our government for reprisals that they did on blue on greens, green on blues. None of that happened. None of it. So I don't understand why we're doing a break and rant on one of our own. G'day, Jared. How you going, mate? Sorry, not sorry. There we go. Guys, I'm going to put the link in comments right now. You don't have to agree with me. If you've got an opposition view, no worries. If you support what I say and would like to talk about it because you've absolutely feel like you've been betrayed by the pinnacle of the man that we turned into a lion on the battlefield with the incorrect rules of engagement to win, that he adapted to that battlefield and he saved the sons of others and he saved the villages by taking out wolves. We can all say, did he do it? I don't know. Did he do it? Where there's smoke, there's fire, you might say. But at the same time, everyone I've spoken to other than in comments like cowards, I've actually heard people all say, whether he did it or whether he did not do it, he done it during wartime. Let sleeping dogs lie. There's an inadequate attack on his character that is going on and on and on the eve of ANZAC Day, of Captain Day, where he started in the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment, which is also 24th, is also Captain Week, where the slaughter of more than 10,000 Africans, including children and women, happened in front of me. Not in front of me as much as the rest of my buddies. I buried them. They saw it happening, and this is the axe from the massacre. What about Villers-Bretonneux that happened in the same time, where we saved the French and lost over 1,000 Australian soldiers? All this happened on this week coming up, and all we fucking ask of an Australian countryman is to get up early, put on your Sunday's best or at least a hoodie, and head out and show some respect for those that never came back home again, the bravest amongst us. The politicians we have now are because we lost the bravest amongst us that would have had the bravest of kids and represented us in a positive way. If you were watching this, you probably don't even want to look at TV anymore. Just add me to one of your supporters, just like Mr. Bucko, just like the military personnel, just like good Australians. Just like good Australians. Anyway, I'm going to put the link up, then I'm going to play a little video for you, and then we'll see, does anyone want to step up, have their phone ready to communicate their support, or at least ask the questions about Ben Roberts-Smith, Victoria Cross, Medal of Gallantry. Please, when you say his name, add that, Victoria Cross and Medal of Gallantry, because they're official titles. Official titles. Okay, so what I'm going to do, there's the link. And paste. There it is. So you should be able to click on that now. What I'm going to do is now go to the video of Ben Roberts-Smith. Video, no, not that one. Share the screen. For those that have never been on here before, you're very welcome, countrymen. And now it would be a good time for you to subscribe to the channel. And if you need more, go to the comments below, not the comments, the information below, and you'll find a Black Legion, or the Patreon, where if you want to join and have one-on-one conversations where you can absolutely speak your truth. Okay. So we're going to have a look at this. And we'll press play. And this is just to get you ready. This is Ben Roberts-Smith. His own words.
Well, for the past 10 years, my family and I have been subject to a campaign to convince Australians that I've acted improperly in my service in Afghanistan. As I've always maintained, I categorically deny all of these allegations. And while I would have preferred these charges not be brought, I will be taking this opportunity to finally clear my name. I'm proud of my service in Afghanistan. While I was there, I always acted within my values, within my training, and within the rules of engagement. I'd also like to say that I'm extremely proud of all of the men and women that served alongside me in Afghanistan, and their service and sacrifice should never be forgotten. Particularly those who made the ultimate sacrifice, many of whom were my friends. I'd like to thank my partner Sarah, my beautiful daughters, my mother and father, and all of Sarah's family for their unwavering support, for standing by me during this difficult time. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the millions of Australians who have reached out to me publicly and privately to offer their support and well wishes. It means a great deal to me and is extremely humbling. I understand this is an unprecedented case and the public interest is huge and the media has a job to do, which they should be allowed to do. But I would ask that the media please allow my family their privacy at this time, particularly my children, who have already, unfortunately, suffered through a deliberate, sensational arrest that was made last week, an unnecessary spectacle. I understand this journey will be long. I understand this journey will be difficult. But I can promise everybody that I have never run from a fight in my life. I will never give up, and I will always be in the fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Guys, if I was to ask you, who would you rather have as your next door neighbour? Ben Roberts-Smith, even with these accusations against him, or Anthony Albanese, who's basically never had a job in his life that made it to be in charge of our country? Where is our leadership at the moment of our military? How come no one is saying this is wrong, this is bullshit, Albo, step down? How come the Commissioner of Police, the DEI female hire, is not saying this will not be used as a pawn, as a tool? This is not the way we treat Australian citizens. I don't know what's happening. The standards have dropped across Australia, not just for our highest echelons of trust, but even for citizens of this country. The expectation of a fair go, mateship, brotherhood, all of these things, where are they gone? I expect when a noise happens in the street that every single street light comes on and everyone addresses the wolf in the street as sheepdog that band together. Ben Roberts-Smith, VCMG, there is people alive today. There is people alive today that have had children that would not have existed if he had not have been there. He was the flame of inspiration and the upholder of standards, whether you liked him or not, that brought people back home alive. Marxist, I agree. Jared says, who signed off on the rules of engagement? The brass who have dodged all the accountability the brass have for at least. Oh, sorry, I can do this now. Bam. Thanks, Jared. We talk all the time. It's great to hear you. Joshy, that might be a little bit too far, but yeah, there'd be some that agree. But again, all we want is a fair go for all of those that pay their taxes, that put their life on the line. Now, we've got Kawaka. His face hasn't shut up here, so I don't know if he's ready to come on. And we're going to see what he's got to say. All you got to do is say yes to your camera and yes to the microphone. If you say no to showing your face, then quite often that can mean there's about to be a bit of a troll, and I hope that's not what you are. As you can see, I'm wearing the Matty Morris Zero Limits T-shirt, apparel. Matty Morris is a national treasure, and he's a monster. I suggest if you want to know the military communications, conversations, and essential workers, the reason we think the way we do, talk the way we do, stand for things we do, and have our value system that may also be very hard for other people to contain, but that could be due to inadequacies in their own life that they feel like they haven't achieved anything. Maybe it's nepotism, maybe it's jealousy. I suggest you go on and listen to Matty Morris, or Justin Huggett, on The Angry Grunt. Gave a great story, fantastic story, didn't he, Buckaroony? And he attested to, a family that he looked after, 5 boys, and a father that every day used to get refreshments, money, and things from the Australian patrols, only to one day get a surprise attack against them. You may call that an ambush, which is a surprise attack by a force lying in wait on an unsuspected enemy or group. And then when they towed them all up, it turned out it was the people that he'd been feeding every day. These same people that you call farmers that you feel sorry for and you shed a tear for, while sometimes not supporting the very people that represent you, understanding that the sheepdog quite often looks like the fucking wolf. So people are scared of him, just like the people that hate German shepherds because they can't trust them because they're dangerous looking, but not necessarily, in measure. You can't be a dentist to chat. Yeah, anyone can join team. Anyone can join. G'day, Scotty.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, you've had your chance, Kauka. Do we have anyone? Come on, team. This is your chance to hold the microphone, to speak for yourselves, speak for your family. Let Ben Robert Smith know that as a normal Aussie, you either agree or do not agree with what's going on. Our medals team. I've got shitloads of them. Shitloads of them. But they are different to Ben's. My medals say that I went and I represented, in an active conflict, on 4 different occasions. It says, and I came back. You can clearly see me here. But Ben's are different. Not only did Ben say that he went there, what it also says is that he stood out, that he did more, that he was first, that he did more than what you'd ask him to do. And the price of a Victoria Cross or a Medal of Gallantry normally means that you come back on your shield. So when you see people with medals, that means they participated. There's a lot of cause and not many of them go outside the wire. Yep. That doesn't mean they're not crucial, but it is not the same. Buck, here he is. There you go, mate.
Good, mate. Yourself? How is everyone tonight?
Wait, I can't hear you, brother. This is good for covering my ears. You'd call it camouflage for ears.
You got me now,
mate.
Yeah, good.
I can hear you perfectly, mate. You got the voice of an angel.
I wouldn't say that.
Neither would I, but I did just for the camera, for you, mate.
Yeah, that's good.
So, mate, what's going on?
Not much, mate. It's been a bit of a turbulent week, hasn't it? With the arrest of Ben Robert Smith. That one shattered me, mate. Absolutely shattered me. And I was disgusted. I'm just so glad he got bail the other day. That's at least a good start. It's a good start, and at least now he can work with his legal team and get things sorted out. But mate, the AFP, they're on the nose, mate. They're on the nose. The way that whole arrest went down, and I don't know if people are aware, but it was on the news today that he was on his way to Sydney just to go shopping with his daughters. They were going to return back to Brisbane that day, and the reason they arrested him in Sydney, and they were saying it was to do with the more of a multicultural jury when it comes to his trial on that. But the other one is, and I wasn't aware of this, New South Wales has got rid of committal hearings now, mate, where in Queensland, before you go to trial, you go through a magistrate's court through a committal hearing. Magistrate hears all the evidence, and then he decides whether there's enough evidence to take it up to the higher court to a trial. This one would be a Supreme Court or whatever. But New South Wales got rid of committal hearings, mate, so they don't have to get their evidence through a committal hearing. And as we know, there's a lot of holes in their evidence from the sounds of things, a lot of hearsay, people saying.
So Bucko. Yeah. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
So do you think that I'm going out on a limb here by saying I do not believe that the Australian civilian legal system has the authority to actually be able to even hear this case? None of them know exact of what they're talking about. They have never stood in his shoes. They are not his peers. They have never been in danger. How can they possibly put themselves in the position or understand a mitigating circumstances? If this is not a witch hunt, if anything, this could be thrown out now just based on the fact that the way they took him down in public but didn't put cuffs on the eve of Remembrance Day, the untold damages that's doing on this man for an allegation, which his actual reputation is indisputable. He's already got that. He should have been given the benefit of the doubt, the gentlemanly honour to come in and say, this is who I am, but to a military tribunal, not to a civilian legal platform, considering that everything they're accusing him of happened under high stress, during something that he was representing us on a battlefield with rules of engagement and laws that put him and his buddies in danger. Now, for him to even defend himself now, and let's just assume that he did do the things he did. What if he did do the things he did, but if you gave him the opportunity, he said, and I'll tell you why. And then he did a big list of all of these reasons why it was done, and what he done saved lives. You know, that's what makes me so angry, so angry.
Yeah, I know. I don't think he can be heard. You know, you can't go to a court martial on that. He's not in the military anymore, which is the main reason.
No, but it happened. But it happened in the military.
Yeah, I understand that, and I agree. I think he'd be better off going through a military. The people would understand more and have a better understanding of the rules of engagement and all that. This trial, mate, when they get 12 civilians in the jury, people don't even know what an ROE is. They're going to have to explain and break it down to just base level and explain to everyone what a rule of engagement is. Rules of armed conflict. But even then,
that is like trying to explain to people, you know, what it feels like to have an orgasm, you know, to a 95-year-old or to a 9-year-old. You know, there's only one religion that allows that. Yeah, dudes, this was before its time. I love this. This is so fitting for what we're talking about tonight. This is someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. This is in a court martial where nothing is out of bounds, talking to someone who's had an entire life of representing his people.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know, that Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide and then questions the manner in which I provide it.
Yeah, it was a good movie, that one. A great movie.
It is. Yep.
I hope Ben's going to go the same way as the movie, but mate.
Yeah, no.
The good guy went down in that one.
And what would you do if you could talk to Ben now? You're an ex-prison guard, an ex-police officer, and a servant of the nation of over 20 years in the army. No one understands this more than the situation you're in right now. Spread some light for us, what you believe, you know, should occur from here to appease a nation that feels like their nation is on fire. You know, just like that supposable accident that happened at an oil refinery. How is that possible?
Yeah. I just think, mate, this should have been knocked on the head 10 years ago when they started spending millions of dollars going after them. Who approved the $300 million over 10 years to go after our special forces, mate? So they've come too far now to can it. I can't see it. I think this is going to play all the way through, and hopefully he comes through out at the other end, mate. But they're not going to. I'd love to see the charges drop right now, but he's got no top cover, Kaz. Where's the top cover coming from? The highest ranking person that's come out in his defence is Heston Russell, mate, who was a major. There is no one. Where are the ex-SAS COs who were brigadiers over in Afghanistan? None of them are speaking up, mate. None of them.
We've also got Mark Wales, who's coming in hard and heavy with his channel, with not emotion, but he's coming in there with logic, explaining things so people can at least make a decision based on, some common sense and a little bit of understanding about the battle space complexities, the rules of engagement that they're following in, the limitations, etc., on only then doing daytime patrols, negating their ability on the battlefield through night vision equipment. And I can tell you, Bucko, all of my heroes wear night vision. You know, that's what I say to KP. Love it. and I believe it. My heroes operate at night time while I'm sleeping.
Yeah, well, they
No.
weren't allowed to, mate. But Mark Wales brought up some good points, mate. But I still think he's sitting on the fence a bit, mate. I still he's not. People need to come out and start. Someone at the top needs to come out and go explain that the commandos and the SAS were sent in to take out terrorist targets. And until they do that, mate, people are still going to think that they did these crimes, mate. There's no one's coming out and flying cover for them. Will it happen in court? Well, you want to hope so, or he's going to go down, mate. If someone doesn't come out in court, a senior officer, and I'm talking brigadier, major general type rank.
Well, I love him, but where's Simon Stewart? Where's General Stewart at the moment?
Well, that's right.
He's
mate.
one of my favourite officers.
Where are they? He's a
I don't know.
politician. And as Huggo said yesterday on my live feed, mate, when they get to that rank, they are politicians in uniform and they're hamstrung. We know that, mate. We know that. He's not going to come out and say anything. He should be. Even the officers that are out now that are no longer in the military, they should be coming out and saying something. General Cosgrove, love to see him come out and start bloody. So, but not so much Cosgrove. He wasn't over there in that theatre, mate. He was before that. It's the generals and the brigadiers that use, and I know there's a couple of brigadiers, Gus Gilmore, Mike Hindmarsh, ex-COs of the regiment that got promoted up into special forces, went over there to Afghanistan as brigadiers. They're out of the army now. Why are they not coming out and saying anything?
Yeah. Isn't it funny how almost everyone that's saying something, all the moral courage, a soldier's meant to have the physical courage, an officer's meant to have the moral courage, and now we've used our physical courage, but we're not seeing the moral courage.
Well, mate, the only ones coming out saying anything are baggy-ass warrant officers and sergeants and corporals and that, mate, that are going into bat for him. Where are the senior officers? They're weak as piss, Kaz. They are as weak as piss, mate. They really are. And back on the arrest, mate, I'm glad they didn't put Ben in handcuffs. And unlike the United States, mate, when you arrest someone in Australia, especially in Queensland, I'm sure New South Wales will be the same. It's not mandatory to put the cuffs on if you arrest somebody. If they look like they may go violent or they are being violent, absolutely the handcuffs. If they're being violent, the cuffs will go around on their back. But I'm glad that they didn't handcuff. And that was the AFP diggers that brought him off the plane. And thank goodness they didn't bring him off in handcuffs. I would have been even more disgusted. But the fact the media were tipped off and all that, mate, it's unethical. Someone that Commissioner of Australian Federal Police should be on the mat at the moment. Albanese should have her on the mat, getting her to explain her actions because it's unethical and it was bordering on corruption, mate.
Well, it was being used. This is something you'd expect in Russia or, funny enough, in England. You'd expect that to be something in England or Canada. The funny thing is people might hate him, but you know that if we'd have had Donald Trump and you tried this shit over there on one of their highest Medal of Gallantry winners, you know, you'd want to make sure your facts are straight, or Donald Trump would have you in his office right now going, how did this leak? And maybe you're going to be in the motherfucking cell with him eating off a steel tray. You know?
I think you'll find that Trump's got a lot more power as far as acquitting people and giving them a pardon and all that. I don't think our Australian Prime Minister has the same powers as the American president, mate. And I think that's why Albo's thing now just comes out. It's before the courts, I can't say anything. That's his throwaway line, mate. You will get nothing out of that man. You will get absolutely nothing out of him.
Well, you know that Albo's basically never had a job before. He's only ever worked for the rise to become where he is now. Always, forever. He was a single mum. He had a single mum. He's always been a leftist. You know, I'd argue that he doesn't even love Australia, and so far it seems to be proven. Mate, we've got Captain Muller trying to come in.
I'm out of here, yeah.
No worries, brother, and always good to have you here. For those that don't know, Mr. Buckaroony is less about the topics, but we've got him starting to turn. He's starting to get involved. He's getting angry.
Yeah, mate.
Go and subscribe to his channel. And, mate, it's always a pleasure, Bucko. We need more of you in this world.
I was that angry, mate. I handed my medals in that
That's
afternoon
right.
when they dragged him off the plane. I went into Bob Catter's office. People might have seen it on the news. They were my medals, everyone, and I ain't getting them back. I'm disgusted in the way he's being treated. I'm disgusted in this country at the moment, and I will never get my medals back. Maybe they'll end up with my grandson or whatever, mate. But yeah, mate, this country's lost me. I'm afraid, Kaz. I'm the most patriotic bloke in the world, but they've
Never
lost
would
me.
have thought.
They've absolutely lost me.
All right, brother.
See you, mate.
I'll talk to you tomorrow, mate.
Righto, mate. See ya. Thank you.
See you
Thanks
later,
for
mate.
having me. All right. See you in the chat room, mate.
See you, brother. Bye. Let's see if Captain Muller. What do you got to say? Muller, the German name, Orba.
Guten Morgen.
Hello,
I'm currently in Victoria. It's a Puka Pioneer. It's a tank training ground. I am from the 203rd Tank Battalion in Germany. We're currently stationed in Kenya. That 300 million figure I heard of. I heard them talking about that one in the multiple.
Yeah, that's right, mate.
Yeah, so I'm currently helping train with the Leopard 2 for ADF officers because they are thinking of switching to that instead of the Abrams because they cannot continue upgrading the AIM program. The M1A1, it's their modified Abrams tanks. They can't keep upgrading them because they're costing too much, and the generators, the engines cannot produce enough energy for them.
Well, Armored Corps, they love their air conditioning, don't they?
Yeah, but it's mainly fire protection systems, and they're thinking of up to APDS.
Yeah, okay.
So the million figure that I heard was apparently that was overall into all investigations of war crimes.
Okay.
That is what I.
Okay. Either or, mate, it's a bigger sham and a bigger waste of money than what NDIS is a lot of the time. Tell us a little bit about yourself, mate. What's your stance on this from the German perspective? And we're lucky to have you here, mate, and I really do appreciate you, and welcome to Australia. What's your thoughts on the way this situation's getting handled with nearly 15 years later after the event that it's suddenly come up and it's feeling a lot like a political distraction? What are your thoughts on this, mate, as a military individual?
Oh, also just one thing, my profile picture, I woke up and that was next to my head, big spider.
Welcome to Australia, mate. That's an 8-legged hug right there.
Yeah, I did not like that one. But so I heard his platoon was going against him in courts. There's about 10 witnesses. And apparently another 2 SASR, they were injured in, I think it was northern Afghanistan. I can't remember the name. It was around there. But they were injured when he shot someone.
Okay. You do know that the amount of people that came and spoke, you understand what a subpoena is, that they were basically forced to come and communicate on what they knew about the situation as a military investigation. There was some that came forward voluntarily. And again, there is a lot of conjecture in what they did and what they said, and other SAS individuals, what their thoughts are on this matter. And this could even have the effect that there's similar to a civil war that may happen within our special forces community on who takes the side of or who is against, and a distrust that can actually come when people name names, so to speak. So what are your thoughts on that?
So subpoena, that's when they are forced to bring in evidence. So it is mandatory, or else they will be charged.
Yes.
So I have heard a lot of things about him killing innocents. If it's true, well, obviously he should go to prison. I've heard the memorial where his uniform is, they've stated that if he is convicted, they still won't take away his credibility and his awards. So if he's found guilty, he should obviously serve his time. Haven't heard anything about... what was that?
Who do you think should hear it? But do you honestly believe that a civilian court should be allowed to hear about a military hero, or do you believe that that should be behind closed doors? None of this leaked out. No trial by media. That this should have been a court martial, that it actually occurred when it was pertinent, where everyone had the secret clearance and some loose version of understanding what it's like to be in an operational theatre, which I'd argue no one from the legal department of military would understand either.
Well, does Australia have a war court, a war criminal court?
Well, we do when a court-martials can absolutely occur when something happens in wartime. He is not currently serving now, but I'd argue that the information, if they were to put that out on the table now, not only would the people not have context, but I think that there's also the chance of the permanent damage that it can do to our fighting forces, whether that be the deterioration of trust in them or the continued or a lack of people then applying for the military in the future.
Well, if he isn't in the military now, which I didn't know, I thought he was still serving. Well, it's obviously going to be a civilian court because he doesn't get the same rights as a soldier. So he should be treated as a civilian.
I'd say we get less rights if you do something wrong overseas. You're held to account by your military judicial system as well as the civilian system.
Yeah, but yeah, he should still face normal civil court because he's not in the military. And I don't see it affecting people joining the army. Yeah, don't really see how that could be affected.
Absolutely, it can be. We hear people all the time, and this is not a nice thing to say, but we're hearing people all across Australia saying, fuck the army, I don't want to apply anymore. Now, my answer to that would be, this situation did happen 15 years ago. I am not happy with our executive branch of leadership that aren't weighing in, not saying, not defending, not asking for a military-aligned system or representing Ben Roberts-Smith. But I would say to people that this is not something, there is allegations. And I also understand that if I do something overseas, like you'd understand, if you do something overseas, I don't expect to be given special treatment. I don't expect to be forgiven just because I'm a serving member, but I would like my day in court to be by people that understand what I'm going through, and have actually walked outside the wire and understand the stresses and potentially even a mitigation being post-traumatic stresses that have affected actions when put back into the coalface against those that what they've done that Australia has no idea about. What I mean is, I don't think for a second that anyone innocent had was taken out. I believe there was something's happened, and I believe it was against people that absolutely were guilty of things against their own people and potentially against Australian or coalition forces that can't be said out loud.
So the first thing about Australian taking the army, I've heard that is because of previous wars like Vietnam and Iraq and Korea, and I think Fiji was one of them. Was that or was it East? It was either East Timor or Fiji. Yeah.
East Timor, not Fiji. East Timor was like a peacemaking mission that turned into a peacekeeping mission.
Yeah, I heard about that one. I think a lot of it comes from people not really knowing how the military works, that and shouldn't really be dragged in the wars that the US makes them to because of a forced treaty, the ANZAC. It doesn't really, it sounds very one-sided. Only America really benefits. Australia.
I'd have to completely disagree with you there because we have no ability to defend our nation.
Sorry?
We do.
Like Australia?
Australia cannot defend itself, mate. Our army is tiny. Our capability is small. We need our American allies, and I'm very proud of them. I've worked with them overseas, and I love working with the US. I really do. I think they're expecting us just to be on the ground and show support. We've got a lot of US forces on Australian soil, and I think we're lucky to have them, because I don't think England is coming to help us, just like they didn't help us when New Guinea was attacked and the Japanese were on our doorstep.
So first, the American soldiers, I heard in Darwin, they're not allowed to leave base due to increases in rape. Heard about that one. US Marines, they're not allowed to leave base anymore.
Actually convicted people or allegations?
It's just a lot of them. It was against Indigenous Aborigine women.
I couldn't imagine there's truth to that. I don't know.
I think it's in the. It's been going on for about 10 years now. They've been. I think it was federal police looking into it.
Okay. Well, mate, I haven't even heard of that happening before, mate. That's the first time I've even ever heard of that. Okay, Captain Muller, we'll jump out of here and we'll see what Hollywood's got to say next.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think Australia gets its strength from the army. I see it as a Navy and Air Force. Just recently only made a second aircraft carrier.
I totally agree.
Like the F-35 alone, we have Australia has nearly 100. That's more F-35s than they do ships. They could just sink them.
It's not that easy, mate.
But it's a stealth plane. It's smaller than a Bumblebee on radar.
Yeah, it depends on what military you're talking about. Remember, when people attack, they tend to usually come in a ratio of more than 10 to 1.
Yes,
whether
but
that be
to get their ships down here. They only recently did one destroyer. That was nothing.
Yeah. Well, okay, mate. We appreciate you, buddy. Have a good time. Enjoy Australia. We've got a lot of German bars over here. Don't go home married. And, mate, I hope you have a good day.
Yep. And Donald Trump is a pedophile.
No, he's not. No, he's not. You seem to fucking hang on a lot of allegations.
It's funny what I just did. There's this loser.
Not one person, not one thing you've said so far, mate,
and
has been about anyone that's ever been charged. All right. So Captain Muller turned out to be one of those. All right. Don't be a troll, team. G'day, mate. How you going?
Good, yourself?
G'day, Hollywood. How you doing, buddy?
Good, mate. Can you hear me all well? Or?
Yeah, very well.
Sweet. I'm just pacing outside.
That's what I do, mate. It's a sign of ADHD, man.
Yeah, I can't sit still, bro.
Yeah, that's all right.
So I kind of missed out on most of the topics there while I was waiting in the room. What did I miss?
We had a fella on that claimed to be German, and he just sat and just listed off a whole bunch of different things that were about allegations. And I don't think there was any merit to any of them. So, unfortunately,
I caught the
when
last
you give the
bit,
microphone over.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's going on, mate? What's your thoughts for Ben Roberts-Smith?
It's hard to start. I think just recognising that I'm a civilian, although I'm attempting to join the ADF for something I want to do, I am still a civilian. I have zero experience in that setting. So how can I pass judgment on that? I heard you ask the question before, if you could ask Ben Roberts-Smith one thing. Why? I would ask him, who do you think has the right to pass judgment on you? Like, who do you think has earned that right? When you've done what he has done, who has the right to judge him to a degree, especially a civilian?
I actually love that. And so that would sound similar to like an appeal where they let you know, if you take the plea deal, that's it. You've accepted it. Now, you've also basically what comes with that. do you want to go in and defend yourself in the arena, or do you want to leave it up to the judges, so to speak? You know, that would be good to give him an element of choice, because this is going to be a worldwide famous case.
Yeah, 100%. I think the day after his arrest, all over social media, there was a lot of Americans talking about it, especially, you know, given the support that Trump's garnered with the military and so forth. There was a lot to say there. I haven't seen anything, but I'm surprised Trump hasn't said anything, to my knowledge. I'm not actually sure. Yeah. Look, it's the fact that he's a Victoria Cross recipient and he's in this position is just mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you think to yourself, not just a Victoria Cross, but to have a Medal of Gallantry as well, to show that you've got repeated. You could argue that you'd come to grips with the fact that you were not meant to survive the battlefield, that you're fully committed, leading the charge, so to speak.
Yeah.
So for that to occur, you would say to yourself, well, what sort of damage has that done to him, molded him to a position where he can't go backwards? You know, where he found out the cheat code on how to survive in Afghanistan, how to flourish, how to win, you know, and have all of the inside information that he's not allowed to tell you how he knows that something is true.
Yeah, exactly. And especially
an interesting one.
Like with what we're privy to, especially civilians, in terms of like, you know, the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
Everything that he's like learned that he's had to, it's just, I just don't understand how a bunch of civilians can judge that.
Look,
there's just too many extraneous variables.
I'd go as far as to say, Staney, even as someone from the Royal Australian Regiment, an infantry background, that I do not consider myself a peer of the guys from SASR, despite the fact I worked with so many of them before they went to SASR, or commandos before they became commandos, etc. They have a different role. Their strike capabilities, you know, when they do their raids, etc., and the frequency of danger and absolute destruction that they rain down upon the enemy. At what stage does that also become the way you're programmed? How do you come back from that and go and watch a movie like Saving Private Ryan in a building full of air conditioning and people with pink Crocs and tattoos down to their wrists that are playing the part, when they don't realise you're the real deal, sitting 4 people from them equally enjoying popcorn, but then you're stuck in that position when you go outside the theatre, or someone presses you on ANZAC Day, that they don't realise this is a man that has taken more lives than Ted Bundy, you know, and you're supposed to just shake it off. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And again, like, you know, I'd assume that just because you might be a member of the Defence Force, you might still not be able to have that right, to, so to speak, to pass judgment.
We're not.
And
all
I don't mean that
equal.
disrespectfully. Yeah. You know, if your role is something to do with admin or warehouse or truck driver or whatever, you know, you're a cog in the machine and you're important, obviously, but such different roles.
Yeah. It's a funny one, man. Every time you get on a plane or a ship to go overseas, you never know, are you coming back in a box, or are you going to be walking, or are you going to wake up in a German hospital? You just don't know. But you still go there voluntarily, you know?
And that's the thing that's another thing that's all, you know, it's all voluntarily. And, you know, all these people that I see on social media that are calling him a monster, calling him disgusting and so forth. If you kind of, in my opinion, if you really want to look at it as like a really myopic, really like patriotic, jingoistic sort of way, you could be like, well, your right to sit there on Facebook and say these things about him is what he's going out and volunteering for. That freedom that you have to pass judgment when inherently you have no right to, that's what these blokes do. That's why they're there.
Yeah, they don't talk about it. They've done it. And we talk about this stuff all the time, Hollywood. Best looking man in South Australia, which makes you silly because that's also where the metropolis and the concentration of single mothers are. What was I talking about?
You were saying that we talk about this all the time in terms of passing judgment and so forth, and the right to, and why people like Ben Roberts-Smith decide to volunteer and put their hand up and do these things, like what makes a person want to do that, so forth. I'm trying to build
when
your
we
bridge
come
here,
home, we do come back cracked in some kind of way. When you see that all cultures are not the same, there is definitely levels to superior cultures, based on the way they treat animals, the way they treat each other, the crimes that they conduct against each other. But we're meant to come home and pretend, that we didn't see it. The cruelty to animals is something that Australians have a very hard time with, very hard time. And when we see
definitely.
that, look, I've seen people cut a piece out of a cow for dinner for their family while it's still alive, and then leave it to still walk around because it's still a value and can still work. So they get the steak while the cow still has to work in the field, and they cut pieces off it when they need it. That's horrific. And what they do to dogs, I'd argue, a gift from God to people. It's horrible.
100%.
Should be their first.
And like none of these things are going to come up in court and so forth. Within the whole judicial. So these are things that I'm saying. Like we as civilians, we don't know these things. We're not privy to these things. You could be a fucking badass like Ben Roberts-Smith, but at the end of the day, you come from a specific culture, and you are human. You're going to make correlations, and it might breed hatred. It might breed all these different things.
So here's a question.
It's just. Yep.
Does this in any way affect you from second guessing whether you want to join the Australian Army or not?
No. Not at all.
Okay, good.
Not at all. No. But again,
believe that we're the best small army in the world, but I do think that we need to change these standards. You cannot have, and I know this is going to piss some people off, you cannot have a non-arms corps female head of the Australian Army that makes the decisions for a non-arms corps that sends combatants outside the wire when in that 40-year career, God bless you, thank you for your service. But during that time, you've had time to get 3 master's degrees and have 3 children. Did you do any soldiering during that time? I cannot accept being told what to do by people that have a subsidised fitness requirement, that can't even hold a pistol properly, because their grip strength isn't enough to use a firearm. I can't forget what I know and what I've seen and the problems. This is where the A team goes up against their A team, and you can not afford to have any losses ever. And if people have a problem with Ben Roberts-Smith, I'd say to them, why don't you ask the parents of those that would be serving beside Ben Roberts-Smith and say, aren't you lucky to have him by your son's side? He can bring you back. He is what
I've seen him in real
like.
life, mate. You'd want that bloke standing next to you. He's a gargantuan human being. He's biblically massive. I saw a comparison the other day, and although it might sound a bit, silly or whatever, if you see these videos on Facebook and stuff, and like a pit bull bites someone, or kills a dog, more often than not, you're always going to get people saying it's the owner's fault, not the pit bull's fault.
Yeah,
you could somewhat apply that possibly to what's happened here. Why? And again, I'm not in the military, but from an outside point of view, where's the level of responsibility above that? I just don't understand. And like we spoke about this, Kaz, if you're convicted of war crimes, every single person above you that was privy to what you were doing when you did that, get investigated. And I don't understand that from an outside perspective.
Do you think that maybe we're seeing as well that people have got the wrong idea, Ben, about Ben Roberts-Smith, VC MG, when almost anyone else in his position would have crashed out? He hasn't crashed out at all. He's been calm.
Yeah.
He's been articulate. Has he had a chance to face his accusers? I don't know. Would I want to be one of them? No, I wouldn't want to be one of them. But the one thing that keeps coming back to me is everyone I speak to, and believe me, I've had so many calls because people want to know, how am I meant to think about this? But all of them have basically said that they are proud of this man, that he is an Australian hero, that he will be going into folklore, and whether he done this or not, they trust his judgment that whatever he did was in the best interest for his team and for those over there that he was meant to be defending, protecting, because it seems a little bit weird after 6 trips and that many raids and missions and kinetic prosecutions of targets that he decided to just pick out 4 different people on 4 different occasions for no reason. Dude, if I get punched out on the piss, the first thing you're going to ask is, what did you say? What did you do? If I get kicked off an embankment and shot overseas, then chances are where there's smoke, there's fire, and I've done something to stick my head out beyond the threshold of detection. I think at the moment, my prediction is, and maybe this is too soon, my prediction is that this is created the distraction it was meant to do for whatever political thing it was meant to block and take our eyes away from. And I believe that all of the I think everything is going to be dropped against him, dismissed. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen suddenly. One day we're going to be going, whatever happened to that? And it's going to be areas acquitted.
Yeah, and it will disappear as soon as it eventuated, I think. And I agree with you in terms of smoke and mirrors. I'm not a solicitor, but it doesn't take a genius to see that from what we're privy to as the public, they've got nothing. I see constantly, and again, I might not have all the facts. I'm not saying this is, but from what I've seen, you constantly see people saying, well, there were 21 people from his own platoon that were coming, or company or regiment, that were coming out and speaking against him. All of those 21 people were subpoenaed. They did not have a choice. They were subpoenaed. They had to.
Mm-hmm.
To my knowledge, I don't think any of these 21 soldiers voluntarily approached like the prosecution and like divulged X. To my knowledge.
There is a really good stripped back podcast that happened with Matty Morris and Scojo the other day. And it was very interesting.
Is he a South Australian fella?
I don't know. I don't know anything about Scojo. But Matty Morris, he gives you the microphone and allows you to talk. Yeah, and he lets you make a fool of yourself if you do. He even allowed me on there.
Yeah.
But
you've been on there. Is that a young fella, the digger? No, I'm thinking of someone else. Don't worry.
He was a sergeant. Scojo was a sergeant, I believe, in 2 Commando.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm thinking of someone else.
Matty Morris was from 3 Area, Old Faithful. Right. And on the 24th of this month, in another 3 days, that is the battle honour for Kapyong in Korea. Just so you know, we have someone, the historian from the 2nd Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, that has just been picked to go over and take a Korean veteran tomorrow morning all the way to Korea, where he'll actually be going to Kapyong, where the Australians fought against the North Koreans, Chinese. And he'll be representing us over there, and he's going to try and send photos of his foot over in North Korea. So, mate, all the best to him, and happy, what do you say? Happy ANZAC Day, happy Respect Day. Lest we forget, they shall grow not old as we the left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. And at the going down of the sun and in the morning we will remember them, lest we forget. What can you say other than lift a fucking beer,
Goosebumps.
have a conversation, and just understand the life you have now, has been given to you by the fuse of footprints that were filled with blood, over 103,000 men that gave their lives so that you could have the right to not go to Anzac Day. So, guys, yeah. It's a tough one,
Anyway,
man.
mate, I'll make moves if you want. Get someone else in here.
Okay, brother.
If there's someone waiting.
We'll go for one more person. And thank you very much, Hollywood. I appreciate you. And nearly a 3-hour conversation last night. For those that don't know, when we have these chats, it would be the perfect podcast. We spoke about a good 25 different subjects in depth, and I came away exhausted.
Yeah. I didn't even keep an eye on the time. I could have kept going as well.
Yeah, me too.
We're losing money, mate.
Take it easy.
Catch you, mate.
See you, brother.
See you, mate.
Wait. Okay. We'll put one more out there. I appreciate you being here tonight. And remember, it's absolutely without disrespect that I point out, to myself included, that we are not the peers of Ben Roberts-Smith. We are his countrymen. Yeah. Wait 2 seconds. Hello, dear. Hi. Hello, beautiful. How are you? I'm good. You looking forward to tomorrow? Yeah. Good girl. Can I ring you in 10 minutes? Yeah. Okay, I love you. Having kids, team, is the best thing. And it seems like as soon as you're a soldier, man, you just seem to have daughters. Bucko, Simon Powell, Ben Roberts-Smith, VC, MG, Matty Morris, Paddy Andrews, so many, Darren Smith, Blue Wernham, all of these legends. Guys, we can jump off here if you want now, or we can keep talking. Let's hand this over to you guys, and we can watch about anything or any question you want. Is that a Buckaroony 10 minutes? Yeah, Bucko was on there for about 10 minutes. What else we got? Does anyone else want to have a say? There you go. You can have a look in comments. This is your chance to get up and say what you want. We've only had one pseudo troll on tonight. Some weird claims. Is anyone there from Darwin? Is it true that all the Marines are confined to barracks? I know that can happen after one big weekend. Especially, I don't deserve to be mentioned in the same conversation as those fine gentlemen. Well, we're talking about servicemen having daughters, mate. Of course you do. Anyone? Would anyone like to jump in, Mr. Buckley? Hey, Kaz. Interesting to hear we are looking at German tanks again. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that was trolling or not. I thought that was quite interesting, but it was off topic. Okay, Stamina says they've got a curfew. Right. That guy's a couple of cans short of a six-pack. Yeah, Grumpy, I thought there was something a little bit weird going on. Normally when you come in, you say a little bit about yourself, His English was good. Okay, the Marines at Robinson Barracks have a curfew. You know what? They have at School of Infantry too. Actually, they're not allowed out at night, so except on Thursdays. Here we go. Thank you very much, Carl. I'll be there in 2 seconds. I'll be surprised if anything comes with the charges, Kaz. I love the way you think, Mega Penguin. And thank you for your support. It's always here, mate. I appreciate you. Bam, for you. I'm not really getting bitten by a Tyrannosaurus skull behind me. Guys, I think there's going to be a time where you're going to let this cool down and bam, like a fart in the wind, this is going to disappear. But it doesn't change the fact that Ben Roberts-Smith, VC MG, looks like he's aged 20 years from this ordeal. And I dare say none of it is from selfish. He just wants to be there for his family, and he should be allowed to retire now, after everything he's done for this country, 6 trips, losing mates, about to go into ANZAC Day, where their faces, because remember he was there, he saw them as his best friends, as his colleagues, as his comrades, and then he saw them when they were broken and couldn't be put back together again. Yeah. The German accent changed to Australian halfway through the conversation. Yeah, it was a bit weird, mate. It did change halfway. He was very sus. The fact they have spent $300 million to get it makes me worry. Yep. I never got me cracking. Where are we? Simon Powell says he never got his cracking. Mate, this is StreamYard. This is not, what's the other one? Streamlabs, So I've got to get this decked out. This was it wasn't a German accent. Otherwise it would have been Titzenhausen. That wasn't a German accent. Mr. Buckarini, pork barrels, bam. Good night, says Jennifer G. G'day, Jen. How you going? Penguins also says, we appreciate you, Simon. Couldn't do it without the mods. Bam. Yep, eat some broccoli and we'll be even. This is the worst version of society. Brock Lions. Hey, Lions, here you go, mate. Like we said, Australia has dropped the standards across the board for the police force, for the military, for citizens, for behaviour. It has been completely watered down, and we're seeing a version of Australia that I'm not proud of. I love this country, and I would sign back up for it. But how the hell, look, I won't stop if I start talking about that now. Yeah. Hopefully they'll make Ben's reporting to once a week after a while. If he's only allowed to have, if he's got to turn up 3 times a week, is he allowed to have a beer on Anzac Day? He'd better not be restricted from having a drink. Yeah. Anyway. And Brad says, it's been a concerted effort by his country's left-wing media to discredit our military, Heston Russell and now BRS. And I totally agree with you there. I do totally agree. I don't think we can even hide it anymore. And what happened the other day with that oil refinery, if we were overseas, we've only got 2 oil refineries in use, that would be considered a vital asset that needs military protection in a time of emergency. That didn't happen. We're not hearing anything about it at this critical time. There would have been so many layers of OH&S around that and safety protocols, so there could never be a fire. How did it happen, and what happened to all the cameras that were there? We're not seeing any footage of how it started. Very, very dodgy. Country's lost me, Kaz. I wouldn't sign up again, mate. So there's another option, and we could all go to Thailand. Let's do the reverse of India, and we'll go to Thailand, all of us. Love BRS and you, Kaz. Thanks, Rod. And thank you for your support before 1984, Rod. Thank you very much, mate. Stamina says, wonder if BRS has access to YouTube and is watching this live right now. I don't know, but I dare say that it doesn't take him long to look online and see whether it be Mark Wales, whether it be Huggo, whether it be Bucko, whether it be Kaz, whether it be Matty Morris, whether it be Skojo, whether it be so many of the people that are doing this, so that at least you can feel there is some level of pushback for a man that we've called a hero for so long. Another asset has been closed. Not sure how vital it is. Dude, if you've only got 2, that's pretty goddamn vital. We used to have 8. Mr. Buckarini, how long would it have taken for 6 or 8, 9 to get out of that refinery to do vital asset protection? None. It just send a guard mount with live rounds. I believe the 2 refineries that we have right now should have a section of infantry every day, live rounds, rules of engagement, where you can shoot anyone, civilian, Australian, that tries to interfere with a vital asset. The first thing that happens when we go overseas is we look after vital assets, wheat silos, food distribution points, water, oil, ports, All of those sensitive things, we send people there to seize it, look after it, protect it. And the rules of engagement mean that not only can I take the life of someone because they're trying to take my life, or civilians that we're being sent to protect, but also are vital assets. That's a sharp-looking microphone. Oh, yeah, it is. You know, it is. I was able to let certain person... I was able to let a certain person my views and how pissed off I was on Heston and the ABC. Absolutely. You know, and these sort of situations, it is very bizarre sometimes, the response that you get from people that you think would know better. Today I cleaned up an area. It was a communal barbecue area, and the people that had used it, there was rubbish, tomato sauce, butter, garbage, food thrown everywhere. We're one of the only countries in the world that I know of that has communal areas that they expect you to be a little bit like Japanese, a little bit like Singaporeans, and look after it or lose it. And this is how the way they treat it. You know, I believe that it should be a $100 fine for litter per piece. Those ROE sound too good to be happening in Australia. Well, they should be happening. I just got back from Newcastle, Joshy Fawns. It was great. The water was cold, you know, but it made me feel alive, and I love Newcastle. ABC is cooked nowadays. It always has been, my dude. It's always been cooked. We've got Lightfoot says 100,000 tonnes of ore a day closed for inspection after freak unexpected quake. You know, there's some big girls around there, mate. What the hell's going on here? Hollywood has got himself into a jam here. He's put himself up there with a menstrual cow. Cheers for the screen time, Kaz. Don't forget to subscribe and get to the bat phone if you haven't already. Went through a few ADF mentors before I got into contact with Kaz. Man's the real deal and has been architectural in my application process. Thank you very much, mate. I really do appreciate that. And I believe at this stage that I've had around 10,000 phone calls in the last 10 years, you know, and it's an absolute pleasure, sometimes very frustrating, you know, but, you know, officers salute to Hollywood. Appreciate you, mate. And I'm going to buy some new milk to go in this rancid coffee. Thank you very much, mate, for helping me help the wheels go round, sir. Appreciate it, man. I feel like you're paying me by the minute now, like I'm some sex worker. Cameron, how you going, mate? How are you? For those that don't know, everything I do it for you. My dad was a Vietnam veteran. I'm born on ANZAC Day. My daughter's born on Remembrance Day. The street that I lived in Newcastle is named after, I believe, Douglas Caswell, you know, who died, and he was from Stockton. You know, it is serendipity. It is weird, but I love it. And I'm telling you now, the army might be changing a bit, but they're the best days of my life, and I join up right now again for you. And maybe got a bit of Lieutenant Dan in me, and I feel a little bit like, you know, I wish they'd call me up and ask me to come back and get ready, get fit, and let's go again. What's happening? Okay, sorry. Okay. So, Noah, you're not watching. You know. Yes, I will talk to you tomorrow. Okay, don't be giving away your address, Big Kaz. Too many trolls, man. That's true. But you know what? I'd rather go down with a blaze of glory, and I don't mind crushing a few trolls either. You know, if you're going to come with as a troll, make sure you bring your mouth guard, you know, because I don't want to hurt my hand on your teeth. Happy birthday, Ellen. Thank you very much there, Brady. Thank you, Rod. Thanks, brother. ANZAC Day. Guys, you don't have to be the most dressed up person. You don't. It's about getting up, being there, representing, saying thank you. You know, but if you can, It's not about the 2 up. It's about talking to the oldest person you can find that probably can't even get up anymore. Yeah, and just giving them some ear time. Okay, you got to talk to your daughter. You promised her a call 15 minutes ago. You're right. Let's get out of here. Thank you very much to all for your time, for your dinero, for your common sense. And to Ben Robert Smith, I'm in your corner, buddy. You know, I might not even like you if I met you. You know, you probably wouldn't like me. Don't know. But that doesn't matter because I don't name names and I am in your corner, just like I'd be in the corner of these people here representing them like we have so many times in the past. I'm about to turn 55, you know, on Saturday. I don't need to bullshit about anything. I tell you the way it is. You know, these days I feel like my teeth are like fucking Cheetos. You know, everything aches and hurts when I walk downstairs in the morning. You know, but I love me coffee. I love a conversation, and I love Australia. But the anger I talk with sometimes comes from frustration, and I understand why you're frustrated too. We're girt by sea, and the best of our nation is shaking our head at the moment. Let's not go any further left. Let's turn it around. Let's change who can vote in this country so that we can actually move forward, make Australia great again. Yep. And when was it great again, Kaz? Oh, I'll tell you right now. I was born in the 70s and the 80s and 90s. Chef's kiss. Beautiful. The best music, no makeup, natural boobs, no bras. And that's just the truckies. See you, team. Take it easy. D-Boy, absolutely beautiful, Brady. See you later. Ciao, as I'd say in Carl leaves a thumbs up, guys. Thank you. Okay. Take it easy. And I'll probably be on tomorrow, next day, or the next day. See you later. Don't eat raw chicken. Bye.